Hi, I'm Joe, and today I'm going to take a look at some Creator 3-in-1 sets that are all about having fun at the beach. Everything you see here is covered by only two different Creator 3-in-1 sets. I just happen to have 3 copies of the Surfer Beach House, which is the A model right here, and the B model of the Lighthouse, and the C model of this house with a swimming pool off to the left. And then the other 3-in-1 set is set 31138, the beach camper van, which is the van here. And in this video, I'm going to look at all the models that these sets make, both the official models plus a few rebrickable ones. So let's start taking a closer look. We'll start off here with the A model of the Surfer Beach House, set number 31118. And even though it's named Surfer Beach House, it seems to be part beach house, part surf shop. And the first thing he built are some little turtles here to decorate the outside, because you can see by the blue plates here that we're right on the water. Plus we have what appears to be a dolphin. Then looking around the house, we are facing the water here. We turn it around. We've got the front door with a little porch light and stairs to get to the upstairs part, which probably is the actual beach house where someone lives. Not that much interesting on the back, just some windows. This shutter here opens up to show a small window. And here on the side, we've got a surfboard hung up. And then we're back to the front, which is the ocean front with a crab and a brick-built tree. And a balcony here. This is outside the residential part where we have our surfer dude, apparently, hanging out with some pizza. And that pizza box seems to be an inspiration for a lot of rebrickable models, because a lot of the rebrickable models involve turning this set into a pizza shop. And then, as you can see, as I rotated the house around, everything actually opens up in 2 different places. We have 2 sets of hinges to give us access to the inside of the building. Here at the bottom, you can see we've got the entrance here to the surf shop. And the reason I think it's a shop is because we've got this little cash register here. So if we look to the other side, we can see what looks like surfing supplies and possibly drinks there on a shelf. Looking upstairs, it doesn't look that different from inside, but we can get to the door here, which just shows how our resident can get inside to their apartment. And we just have to rotate the building around, and we can see the inside. Looks like there's a bed, a refrigerator, and a sink. And then we can see here on the other side is how they get out to their balcony to enjoy their pizza. Here on the outside, it looks like there's a shower, place to rinse off after you've gotten in from the ocean. And you can even see that it has hot and cold water with the red and blue 1x1 round plates. And it looks like the red flag piece there is being used as a towel. And here at the top, we have another surfboard just hanging off the rails. Up here on the awning, we've got a bird of some sort that has magenta wings and a red head and a black beak. And here we have the word surf spelled out using these quarter circle tiles, and there's a surfboard going across the top of it. Next, we have the B model, or at least I'm calling it the B model because of the 3 instruction books that come with set number 31118. This was the second longest of the 3 books. And this is a 2-part model because we've got a lighthouse and a little boat. And in addition to that, the first thing we build is yet another sea creature. Looks like some sort of stingray here. And I'll set that aside. And then we have the lighthouse, where it's very hard to imagine this is a lighthouse just because it's so square. I'm sure there are square lighthouses. It's just that's not the typical shape for a lighthouse that I think most people think of. At least I don't think of. But just like the Surfer Beach House, it's situated on the water, as represented by the blue plates here at the bottom. And you go upstairs to get to the lighthouse. We have a little, looks like a telescope of some sort. And we have a different kind of brick-built bird that is blue with a black beak. And if we look close enough to the inside of the lighthouse, we do have a round trans-yellow 1x1 brick there to serve as the light, although we would probably have to put some lights in there to actually be able to see it, because it's not obvious with the way this is built. Here on the side, we've got where a tree is growing. And here, if we look on the side, you can see not just the stairway to get up to the lighthouse or to the deck to be able to look out through the telescope, but we also have the entrance into an office. But unlike the Surfer Beach House, we don't actually have any hinges to open this up. So all we can really do is just look at it through the windows here. And you can see there's nothing much more than a chair and a plant and a pizza box again. And the second part of this build is this boat, which I'm guessing is some kind of little tugboat. And it's not too bad. I mean, of course, it's not going to float. It's pretty flat there on the bottom, but it does a good job of representing what it's supposed to. Got the little foghorn here at the top and, you know, a flag and whatever this other rigging is, probably radio antennas. And you can even see here that it's rigged up a steering wheel using a 2x2 round plate. And the cash register piece is put to good use to make it look like it's some kind of controls for the boat. And here I'll just take a quick minute to talk about the minifigures. Here we've got a regular adult male minifigure with a tank top and a picture of a sailboat on it. And he's got a partially shaven beard. So I guess that's supposed to be our surfer dude. And we have a child who, with this facial expression, seems to be surprised at something, but she does come with the second one, where it looks like she's happy to be at the beach. The C model here appears to be some type of flat beach house, which this is what I'm assuming is the front of the house because it's got the door here that opens up to let you in, but the whole thing unfolds to get to the inside, which I'll get to in a minute. I'll just turn it around. The highlight here is the back of the house, which has the swimming pool, where we've got our diving board and surfboards, and apparently the sea life just come right up to the edge of the pool, and our minifigure can play in the water. We also have a place to hang some of our diving equipment and some plants. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be. It's almost like it could be some kind of heater or a small doorway just for passing drinks through from inside. Not sure. Then as we go upstairs, we see yet another brick-built bird, this one with a much longer beak. And we've got some place for our other minifigure to relax, and again with the pizza. Now, the minifigure in this case has the chef hat on because the third copy of the Surfer Beach House that I bought was used and was missing one piece, and that one piece happened to be the hair that goes with this minifigure. So I just put the chef hat on him because it was the first headpiece I could find. And that way he doesn't have to go around bald and get the top of his head sunburned. And right next to him looks like some type of radio antenna and yet another brick-built tree. But even the box of the Surfer Beach House shows that the preferred display layout is all the way opened up, which definitely makes the house look a lot bigger. And you've got your pool area here, and you can see the inside better. Down here looks like it could be a kitchen counter with a cabinet up above. And here on the other side, it looks like you've got a place to lay down. And then finally, you have your door here for how you go out to your back patio. Finally, we'll look at set number 41138, the beach camper van, which, because I only have one of that set, the rebrickable designers don't seem to be very fond of this one. So I didn't feel the need to get more than one of that set, but this is the A model, the actual beach camper van, and I'll just kind of go through it in the order of how you build things for it. This is a micro scale crab that's all of, I think, 5 pieces, 2 red clips, a cherries, a brown snot brick, and just one of these arced tiles. Then we have another small build, this one 6 pieces, and this is meant to be a seagull. Unfortunately, I haven't figured out how to display this very well because the seagull can only be shown in flight, obviously, because these pieces are sticking out to the side and there's no stud or anti-stud anywhere else unless I'm going to actually set this thing up on its end here, possibly maybe in the middle of the tree. Next, we'll look at the minifigures. This time we've got 2 adult minifigures. This one a female with longer brown hair and this green pattern on the torso. Then we have this guy here who is a male minifigure using the same torso as the male figure from the Surfer Beach House, except he has blonde hair and actually looks much more like a surfer dude than the one that came with the surfer house. And you've got a brick-built ice cream cone and a clever brick-built boombox for enjoying music at the beach. And then finally, we've got a small island here with a small brick-built palm tree. Next, we have these little changing rooms, at least that's what I think of them as, that you see sometimes at the beach, where you can go in and change clothes or use the restroom. In this case, that looks like you've got a brick-built toilet there with just a small amount of toilet paper left on the roll. And here in the red one, I'm not sure what they're going for there because all there is a shovel. And I suppose there's a little bench, but it gets the point across, at least looking from the outside, that these look like those little changing rooms. And there's even a clear brick here at the back. I don't know if you can see that. That would let light into these rooms, which is very typical of these types of buildings that you see at the beach. Then finally, we have the build that actually gives the set its name, the actual camper van. And I'll start with some of these accessories that are on the top, because you actually build this first before you build the van, which is supposed to be like an inflatable toy that's shaped like a duck. And there's even a stud here on the top for attaching it if you want to take it with you on your beach trip. And it doesn't have to stay up here. You can always have it down with your minifigures so that they can play in it. And then you've got two brick-built surfboards here that are also designed to be carried on top of this little camper van. And they're just built with different colors. These actually are built, I think, at the end of the build rather than the beginning, but I'll go ahead and take those off and get them out of the way. And we'll look at the rest of the van, which is a yellow van. It is 8 studs wide. I would not call it Speed Champions for sure, but it's not a bad little build. It definitely fits the aesthetic of what a fun beach camper van would look like. The main access to the van that we can actually use is a side door here. And actually, if you see there's like a half plate gap that makes this easier to open because of some snot construction. And we can see the inside of the van, where this has full living quarters, along with a small kitchen and a place to sleep. And we've even got a plant. Here in the front, you can also kind of get in by opening this little door, but that's really decorative. But we'll look at the inside more in a minute. If we look at the van from the front, we see we've got our headlights and our turn signals. We've got these little gear shift levels being used as wiper blades. At the back, we've got our typical tail lights. We've got a little bit of space here for extra luggage. This is, I think, supposed to be some type of suitcase, and it just snaps on to these snot bricks. And we've got a small ladder to help our vacationers get to their stuff that's on the roof. Now the roof does come off. It is removable because there's only a few studs holding it on, and that's where we get the best view of what's inside this van. Here you can see we've got room for 2 people to sleep, and if they're not sleeping, you could also set this little lever down and you've got a place to sit and eat. Here you've got the little kitchen, little sink. I would assume that's supposed to be some kind of TV. We got a coffee maker. And then you've even got this little ladder piece here so you can climb up to where the driver's compartment is, which is just these 2 red brick-built seats. And if you have small enough fingers, you can actually get those out and use them as beach chairs. And then your minifigures can hang out on the beach and lounge in their chairs. Now that we've taken a look at these official models, let's see what else we can build with these pieces. Here we have 3 more builds. We have one of the alternate models of the beach camper van, and we have 2 rebrickable models. Let's check them out up close. Here we have the B model of the beach camper van, and just by looking at this build, it's not obvious that it actually came from a set that the A model was a van. But to be fair, the van is mostly dedicated to living space and not so much being driven as a vehicle. But this makes not a bad looking beach house, where we've got a nice little lower level, looks like it's on stilts out in the water, and a duck here. Maybe it's a rubber duck, maybe it's just an homage to the duck float from the A model. And we've just got a little bit of sand here and some vegetation. And it looks like we've got a place here to hang up our beach towels. Then on the upper level, we've got a place to lounge out in the sun. Looks like a little radio, a plant, and some type of bird. That's one thing I've noticed that these models do for the A, B, and C models, is they come up with a different bird to go with each model. And then the top, it has clear pieces to show what's in the attic. Not sure why, maybe that's just the only building pieces left, but it's there. The inside is open back. There's not a whole lot there, but we do have a little bit of a kitchen with a stove, and it looks like a steering wheel being used maybe for an oven vent. That's a new one for me. And, you know, a coffee mug, and the upstairs, which has the door and doesn't have a whole lot of room up there, but it does look like there's room for a bed if you need to lay down or, you know, take a rest when it's raining outside. And then up in the attic, it looks like we just have some stuff stashed up there. I'm not really sure what. Maybe those are the boards to board up the window for hurricane season. Here we have a rebrickable model titled Boardwalk Pizza. I'm not sure I can pronounce the name of the creator correctly, so I'm just going to put it here on the screen, and I'll have a link in the description. This is one of the many rebrickable models for this set that creates a pizza restaurant. And if that sounds familiar, if you saw my own video about my mock that I made using all 3 copies I have of this set and just kind of made it up as I built, this model had a big influence on the way I chose to construct my own pizza restaurant. But there's a ton of great detail in this model. First of all, we've got the front door and the front porch, and we've got the pizza slice heavily decorated with something red, black, and green. And I'm a sucker for any Lego builds for restaurants or shops that have a brick-built version of whatever that shop sells right in the front. And of course, we've got the pizza tile, which seems to have inspired so many of these pizza rebrickable models. Here upstairs, we've just kind of got a balcony and another brick-built bird and a roof and some flags. Not a whole lot there in the upstairs part. Around the side here, we've got our restaurant here is on the ocean. So we've just got the blue pieces with the clear cheese wedges and some surfboards stacked up. And we've got stairs to go up to see what's upstairs. Then when we move around to the other side, we just see some windows into the pizza place and a porch light and a life preserver. But we have a great way to see inside because it just folds open nice and easy. We can see that upstairs is actually a little dining area where you can have your pizza and look out over the road, I guess, since the other end faces the water. And here, when you come in, you look in, and I'm guessing that's probably some kind of jukebox. And not much there on that side. But then here, which is where you order the pizza, it uses this little cash register piece here. And we've even got a pizza oven, which this was something that definitely inspired the way I built the pizza oven in my own mock. And you can see on the back here, a place to start making pizzas. And then finally, we have the tiniest of apartments here upstairs, where I guess our Boardwalk pizza owner can get some sleep before he has to make pizzas for the next day. And then if we turn it around and we actually want to display it in the open formation, it still looks pretty good. You have the entrance to the pizza shop here, and you've still got your surfboards, and you've just got your water here, and it looks just fine. And I think this would be the Boardwalk that gives the model its name. This model was made using the pieces from only one copy of the Surfer Beach House, and the instructions as of the time I built it were free. And finally, we have another rebrickable model, and you might immediately notice that this one is slightly larger than what we've shown so far, and that's because this model is built using 2 copies of the Surfer Beach House. This is called the Tiki Surf Bar and was designed by Brick Artisan, who you might be familiar with as he is a fairly well-known rebrickable model designer, at least among the bricking news community. And this is actually a modular compatible model. I did not have to use a base plate, but there is the option to build this on a 16 by 32 base plate if you wanted to put it into a modular base city. Also, each level of the building comes off so that you can see inside. and it's fully enclosed. So let's get a closer look at this model. Starting from the front, it looks like our building is pretty much right on the beach, as we've got the light tan plates on the bottom, but we do have some street lamps here on the side, and we have the main entrance to what is actually a surf shop. You can kind of see in the window here where you've got diving helmets and flippers that are offered for sale. And then you've got stairs that go up to the second floor, which is actually the Tiki Surf Bar. Although you'll have to use your imagination for the bar part. It's much more of a restaurant, pizza restaurant, just like so many other mocks for this set, with a surfboard used as decoration. The bird here, I think, is the same bird build as the A model of the Surfer Beach House. And when we get to the top, we see the sign made from red tiles to say Tiki Surf. Moving around here to the side, we just got some open windows so that you can see what's going on in there. And then when you get to the back, you can see that we're right on the ocean, and it looks like we've got waves coming up. And would that be a shark fin? I'm not sure. Some crabs on the beach and some tropical trees. And then we've got a balcony where people can sit outside, supposedly with their food or drinks, and just kind of enjoy the view. Another one of these birds that's the same build from the A model. And then we have the stairs to get up to the third level, which is where you can go and order pizzas. And then the other side, there's only the one window looking in at the bar/restaurant. Looking at the inside, we'll start here on the lower level, which is a surf shop, and you can see the helmets and diving equipment that we saw through the window, and a surfboard, and I don't know what those would be canisters of, and a place to pay at the cash register, and yet another surfboard for decoration. You can also see the tiling off here of the edges, just like a modular building, with only a few studs for connection. You can see one of them came off there when I pulled the level off, but there's definitely something there. And I apologize if there's glare coming off. I'm having to use the light from my camera here to be able to see inside, but I really want to show you the detail because, I mean, I think it's one thing to make a building, but I really appreciate the interior detail that Brick Artisan has done in this building. Here on the next level, we get to the entrance to our restaurant or bar, and we can see here inside you've got, looks like a place to sit where some people might be having a pizza and some drinks. Maybe that's more drinks there on the back wall. And here, if we turn the building around, it looks like we've got probably more drinks being made. But one thing that it looks like this model is doing that I experienced when I built my own mock is the higher I went up building, the less pieces I had left to do proper modular connections. So instead of just a few studs, we've got, looks like 8 studs, and we kind of have to just hover over this row of studs here because there's just not enough pieces left in the original models. And of course, the point of doing this type of rebrickable model is to use only the pieces in the sets that you're using. But if you have your own pieces, it's perfectly easy to just fill those in to make the model more stable. And here on the third level, after we go up the stairs through the bar, we can get to the entrance of the pizza place where we just open the door and go in. And we can see we've got a couple of tables, it looks like, that have pizzas and slices and drinks on them, or maybe those are shakers for Parmesan and peppercorns. And it looks like some seats that kind of resemble more like mats on the ground, but you could certainly position minifigures there if you wanted. And then with the light blue pieces, those are also chairs. They're just at an angle, so they just look like stylish chairs. Here you see we've got another cash register, which is where you would pay for the pizzas, presumably. And if you really wanted to, you could head outside to a very, very small balcony, but probably with a very nice view of the ocean because this is on the ocean side of the build. And then finally, we have the roof. There's nothing really inside the roof, but this kind of illustrates the challenges of building by limiting yourself to only the pieces in a set, because this is where I had a hard time keeping pieces together because there just wasn't enough to hold them together. You can kind of see there's gaps in there. And when you look on the inside here, you can see Like especially down here, right in the middle of where I've focused, there's nothing holding some things on there. Or they're only being held on by one stud and they're floating, and then you have to put something on top of it. And it's really hard for someone with large fingers like me to be able to hold that steady. But while you can remove the roof, you just have to be really careful when you handle it. But once I got the whole thing together, it's holding up pretty well. And finally, we have some side builds. These turtles are actually, I'm pretty sure, the same build as what the A model has. Same with the dolphin here. And it just happens those pieces were left, and you could still make those. And they would make nice decoration out by the ocean side of the Tiki surf bar. And we have one extra little side build, and it's just a little sailboat that has a hard time staying balanced, but it is a nice little addition with the pieces that were left. And now for the final set of beach builds. And finally, we have the final builds of this video. The C model here from the beach camper van, and a rebrickable model here that is made with all 3 copies of the Surfer Beach House set. Let's check out the aquarium first. We'll start off by looking at the aquarium, which is simply titled Aquarium Modular by designer Rebricked. And I'll put the full details here up in the corner, and I will also add a link to the rebrickable page in the description. But as I said before, this uses all 3 copies of the Surfer Beach House. This MOC is just under 1,400 pieces, and even though it is titled modular, it's not 100% a modular. It just depends on what your definition of that is. One thing I will say is it does use all 3 copies of the Surfer Beach House, but you do have to add your own base plate. And the instructions call for using a tan base plate, which I don't think are made anymore, but it just so happens we had one around the house. But really, any 32 by 32 base plate would do. But we'll start by taking a tour around the outside. In the front, we've got the word aquarium here spelled out using those red quarter circle tiles that there are a ton of throughout the set. And even though we've made an 8-letter word for the front, there are still lots of those red tiles in place on the inside. We've got our palm trees here on the corners, just like we do in most of these sets. We have a bench here for up to 3 minifigures to sit. And we have these plants here. Here's a closer look at the plants spread out in front of the aquarium. Now there's 8 of them there. Technically, there are only 2 plants in each copy of the Surfer Beach House. But this plant piece here, the green piece, is something that is usually included as an extra piece in most sets. So something to keep in mind if you're building a rebrickable model based on a set. When it says you can build a model using only that set, they mean every piece in that set plus all of the extra pieces that are expected to come with it. The front of the aquarium uses most of the window pieces from the Surfer Beach House sets, and I think that really works for an aquarium, but it also kind of draws attention to how much a building like this needs lights. And right now all of my lights are in use on my fish tank, ironically. Therefore, they're not available for me to put in the aquarium, and what I really mean by that is I'm not going to take apart the fish tank yet because that's still one of my favorite builds ever. But if you actually have followed my channel or have followed the Bricking News podcast, you may recognize that you have seen this aquarium before. I made a Bricking News sponsor video with this and actually had lights in it for that. However, this is the first time I've done a more thorough review of what was in this set, as I built that before I started making videos for this channel. Then finally at the top here, you've got a dolphin kind of to be an emblem or logo for the aquarium. And the dolphin is pretty much the same build as what you built for the A model, with just a slight modification so that it can attach to the roof. And speaking of the roof, we've got 3 brick-built birds hanging out on top. If we start looking around the side, we can see that this model isn't really meant to be viewed from the sides. A lot of what's being done here is just trying to use all the brick pieces to build up the wall, and you can see it's just a mishmash of whatever color bricks we could find to make everything work out. We even have a couple of extra window pieces here, and we use a door frame with a door When we go to the back, it's a little more open, and this is actually beneficial to let light in more naturally, where we're just using these white railing pieces here that they definitely help to prop up the roof, but they're also letting light in along with this block of windows and these clear pieces here. And then the other side looks just like the first side. One thing I should also point out is even though this is labeled as a modular, there are no Technic bricks. I don't think there's any Technic bricks in this set. So if you wanted to do something like this and connect it to the rest of a city using the Technic brick and pin, you would have to add those down here on the bottom layer yourself. But the one modular feature this does have is that the roof comes off, or is meant to come off, with not too much difficulty. And that'll give us a chance to look closer at the inside. All right, we're inside the aquarium, and while the outside looks pretty nice, the inside is really where the good stuff is. I think this model is just packed with details for being made with nothing but Creator 3-in-1 parts. We start off when you go in the front door, which is down here to the right, where my fingers are. If you look to the right, we have our first fish tank, or aquarium, where it looks like we've got stingrays, which actually looks like one of the side models from the B model of the Surfer Beach house. And if we look down deeper in, we've got some of the small turtles, also borrowed from the original A model of the Surfer Beach house, and a crab, and some other colors in there to make it look like stuff is alive. And it looks like even water is splashing out the top. And if we look down here right in front of the window, it looks like we have a smaller stingray of some sort. If we move on, we have the first of our snack areas where we have someone selling pizza. Again, the pizza theme is maintained for all the alternate builds of the Surfer Beach house. And this is a great place for using my minifigure that only has a chef hat. And you can also see stairway, which can lead you up to a viewing platform to have a better look at the stingray. Up here on the wall, we've got these Technic pieces being used to make what looks like some kind of vine with just one more of these plants. That would be the 9th plant, showing that even though there's 2 in each set, we actually have 9 total when you count the 8 out front. Here, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm zoomed in through the front door to look at this fish tank that is in the back, and it's actually nothing more than a flipper on a little rod piece, but they did try to add just that little tiny bit of detail. And if we look next to it, we've got some type of, looks like a concession stand. That white piece there is the cash register piece, and it looks like they're selling tickets to something. And based on what's next to it, I would say that is some kind of fish food. And that leads to another set of stairs where it looks like we have somebody up at the upper level of the other tank, and it looks like they're getting to feed the turtles. And she definitely seems surprised to see the turtle up there to grab the little green bits, which I'm guessing is what you would feed a turtle, or at least what a turtle would eat. And before we get to that final tank, we've got yet another concession area. It looks like they're selling canned drinks of some sort, and there's a seat for whoever is selling stuff. And then finally, we've got the turtle tank, which has 3 of the larger turtles here. 1, 2, and then 3 down on the bottom, that were one of the side builds from the A model of the Surfer Beach house. And you've also got more crabs and more undersea life down there. And a little hint of a splash there on the side. And one thing I also wanted to point out is both tanks have this use of the dark blue pieces here to give some texture to the side, make it look like maybe there's more water than there is. And on this tank, we've got the turtles attached to the side, and then on the other side, you've got the stingray. And finally, speaking of those blue tiles, one thing I forgot to mention about the roof is how it's nice and flat on the front as it slopes up, but where did these flat pieces come from that are in the middle? Because there are no plain blue bricks in the Surfer Beach house set. When we look on the side, we see that we have cheated a little bit. We're using some of those bricks rotated 90 degrees to be able to use the flat part for the front of the roof. And we can even move the dolphin a little bit if we wanted to. Finally, we'll finish up here with the C model from the beach camper van, which is a little ice cream shop. And when you're done at the aquarium, you're definitely going to have worked up an appetite for some ice cream. Or in my case, when you wake up in the morning, you're going to have worked up an appetite for some ice cream. I'll start with looking at the shop itself, and it has already one of my favorite features of any build where you have a store that's selling something. You've got a brick-built version of what's being sold, which this is a little ice cream cone here with some cherries on top. And you can see here, you can go up to the window to place your order, or you can look inside and see what's being made inside by looking through the clear pieces right here. Here's our minifigure who's got an ice cream cone in hand already. My guess is this sign would be to represent something showing the specials or what flavors are available that day. And you've got the little palm tree, like almost all of these builds have. It is open in the back, but you can see inside, and you have plenty of room to put a minifigure in here if you want to have someone working at the ice cream shop. Here, I'm not sure what this would be, but this looks definitely like a freezer of some sort. And then over here, looks like a sink or maybe a mixing bowl. Not sure. Maybe it's both. Then, on the upper level, even though your figures have no way to get there, unless, of course, you place them there yourself, you've got a little place to sit and enjoy your ice cream or your coffee or whatever you choose to have at the ice cream shop. Then the second part of the C model is another build on wheels. This time it's just a little car, but appropriately it's a convertible, which is the way we all imagine ourselves at the beach. At least that's what I think of. And it's a perfectly serviceable car. I mean, it rolls. And there's just room for one minifigure on the inside. And then attached to the car, and of course you can put this wherever you want, is yet another brick-built bird. The car does have headlights and tail lights and fenders, and you know, it works as something you can drive to the ice cream shop if it is too far or too hot to walk there. I know that taking walks on the beach to an ice cream shop is something I like to do with my kids when we go to the beach, or they would definitely prefer that I drive them there if I gave them the choice. Thanks for stopping by to check out my builds with these two Creator 3-in-1 sets. I really had a lot of fun building these, and I hope you enjoyed seeing all the different things we can build with those sets. I hope that if you're going to the beach anytime soon, that you have at least as much fun as some of these minifigures have had through these builds. But if you're not going to the beach, remember, today is a good day to build.